Why narcissists play the victim when you set boundaries. 1. Introduction: the moment everything changes. One of the most confusing things about dealing with a narcissist is what happens when you finally stand up for yourself. You reach your limit, you say no, you speak up, you protect a boundary that should have been respected all along. And instead of understanding, they suddenly become the victim. And somehow, you end up feeling guilty. 2. Why this feels so confusing. This is what makes narcissistic dynamics so psychologically exhausting. Because the issue is no longer what they did, the focus suddenly shifts to how you reacted. You may have been ignored, dismissed, insulted, manipulated, or emotionally pushed too far. But the moment you finally respond, everything changes. Now you are too harsh, too cold, too sensitive, too much, and that is where the manipulation deepens. 3. Why narcissists react this way. A narcissist often sees boundaries as a threat, not because your boundary is wrong, but because your boundary interrupts their control. When you say, "This is not okay," you are no longer quietly adapting to their behavior. And that is deeply destabilizing for someone who needs psychological control to feel secure. So instead of respecting your limit, they try to reverse the emotional power. 4. The victim role is a weapon. This is where the victim role comes in. Suddenly, they act deeply hurt, offended, misunderstood, wounded by your tone, your reaction, your unfairness. And the goal is not emotional honesty. The goal is emotional reversal. They want the spotlight off their behavior and onto your response. That way, they no longer have to answer for what they did. Because now you are the one who feels like the problem. 5. Why you start feeling guilty. And this is where many people become trapped. Because if you are empathic, self-aware, or deeply conscience-driven, you will immediately begin questioning yourself. Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I should have said it differently. Maybe I overreacted. And that self-doubt is exactly what keeps the narcissistic dynamic alive. Because once you begin editing yourself, they no longer need to truly change. 6. What is really happening? What is actually happening in these moments is not healthy conflict. It is emotional inversion. They crossed the line, you reacted to being hurt, and then they repositioned themselves as the injured one. This is how many narcissists protect themselves from accountability, not by resolving the issue, but by making your pain look like cruelty. And this can be devastating, because over time, you may stop defending yourself entirely just to avoid the guilt. 7. What you need to remember. If someone repeatedly crosses your boundaries and then makes you feel guilty for reacting, that is not emotional maturity. That is manipulation. You are not wrong for reaching a limit. You are not abusive for protecting yourself. And you are not cruel for naming behavior that hurts you. Sometimes the most painful part of dealing with a narcissist is not only what they do to you, but how convincingly they make you feel guilty for seeing it clearly. If you have ever experienced something similar, feel free to share your story in the comments. Your experience may help someone else who is going through the same kind of confusion feel less alone. And explore the channel for more content about narcissistic behavior, healing, and emotional recovery. Thank you for watching.